Of all movie opening scenes, which one sold the entire film? Saving Private Ryan. The opening robbery scene in The Dark Knight. I think the opening scene first chapter of Inglourious Basterds sets up the villain, Hans Landa, perfectly. Jurassic Park. It really sets the tone for the movie and the foreshadowing gives you a creepy feeling leading up to the storm. Lord of War. The opening credits follow the life of a bullet. It's manufactured, quality checked, packed into a box and then shipped off to an African nation where it gets loaded into a gun and shot into the head of a child soldier. And then we meet the protagonist, Yuri, Nick Cage, standing on a floor of empty casings. Says there's 550 million firearms in the world, one for every 12th person on the planet. Takes a drag on his cigarette and asks, how do we arm the other 11? Edit. Misremembered the order of the scenes as a few people have pointed out. Yuri's monologue about one gun for every 12th person than the life of a bullet sequence. Also, thanks for the golds and silvers. The Matrix opening with Trinity was filmed with the entire original budget to convince the studio that they weren't ducking around. American Psycho. I remember listening to him list out every single thing he does to groom himself in the morning and I thought what a psycho, then thought I get it. Terminator 2. Starting with scenes of bustling everyday life, rush hour traffic, kids playing, etc. Then white flash to the same burnt out playground in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Sarah's somber voiceover explaining how it happened. We see a brutal battle between man and machine. Tanks and Terminators crushing human bones under metal treads and feet. We briefly meet the steely face of the human resistance and savior of mankind right before segging into the opening credits. Finishing with an endo skull grinning through the flames. Duck yeah. Tell me that doesn't get you pumped right there even just reading it. The THX intro. Jaws. You never see the shark in the first attack. Just the knowledge that there's something under the water. Brilliant. Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Are you suggesting coconuts migrate? Scream has an incredible opening scene. The Matrix. I thought Trinity was the villain. Goodfellas. As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. Shaun of the Dead. Raiders of the Lost Ark. All the parts from opening to the point where Indy runs and meets the escape airplane. Pulp Fiction. I was 14 when I saw it and the opening scene just completely blew me away. Fellowship of the Ring. Set a great tone for all of what was to come. Pirates of the Caribbean. Curse of the Black Pearl. The opening scene on the boat in the fog with the young Will and Elizabeth perfectly captures how hilarious, spooky, and kick-ass the rest of the movie is going to be. Also the first Lord of the Rings. So intense in on a massive scale only to be followed by the happy shy scenes. Spaceballs. That ship going by for 5 minutes or more had me rolling and I never stopped laughing throughout that entire film. Gladiator. 2000. That battle was incredible. Great dialogue. Excellent music. Human moments. 28 weeks later I didn't deserve all these upvotes, thank you. The Prince of Egypt starting off with Deliver Us was absolutely jaw-dropping. I can't think of a single stronger opening in any of the movies I've ever watched. Granted that isn't a lot because I'm not a big movie person, but still. Children of Men. Especially if you've never read the book. Holy cow, that was powerful. Tropic Thunder. Shrek. No kidding. The first time I saw it I was so invested after the opening scene. Halloween. The original 1978 version. The entire sequence is a 5-minute uncut POV shot, and then they rip the mask off, and we see that this mysterious killer in the shadows is an 8-year-old boy. The Godfather. I think the scene where Bonacero asks Don Corleone for justice sets up our perspective about the Don pretty well. In that scene we instantly learn everything that Don Vito Corleone stood for. Edit. Spelling. Super Troopers. The first scene of Baby Driver. The Lion King. 1994. Deadpool. That opening scene was the pitching for the movie and the studio didn't like it. So Ryan Reynolds uploaded to YT and the rest is history. The Departed. Powerful footage and commentary did such a great job of kicking it off, while giving a glimpse into what propelled Matt Damon's character into his entry into the criminal family. Then the line, "When I was your age they would say we can become cops or criminals. Today, what I'm saying to you is this: when you're facing a loaded gun, what's the difference?" Felt that was perfectly within the spirit of the entire movie, and sets the stage for what I consider to be one of the best films ever made. Can't believe I'm first with Raiders of the Lost Ark. Also, no Star Wars? Nightmare Before Christmas. Everyone knows the intro. Zombieland. Speed. I Am Speed. Blade. Blood Rave. Team America. World Police opened strong and sold the audience on the marionette performance to come. Kingsman. Set up the ridiculousness yet stylish action perfectly. The opening of Serenity was a stunningly tight exposition. In minutes you are given an overview of the verse and what its central conflict is. You are also given the antagonist, the operative, and how coldly pragmatic he is. You are shown just how much Simon cares for River. Are given the whole layout of the ship. You are introduced to all the characters and see, by their interactions, their core beliefs and roles. There are some great openings listed in this thread, but I don't know that any of them hit the density of exposition as does Serenity. The opening scene to V for Vendetta with How We Meet V. The V word speech was pretty epic also. Has no one mentioned Full Metal Jacket yet? Guardians of the Galaxy. Toy Story 2. Buzz Lightyear infiltrating Emperor Zug's fortress, but you find out later it's Rex playing SNES. The opening of X-Men 2 is so good. Nightcrawler kicking the id out of the entire White House security and nearly assassinating the president, while intense choir music plays in the background. Legendary. Edit. My first ever medal. Thank you, kind stranger. Many really good suggestions here, but I can't see Drive mentioned. After an action-packed chase scene you get the cool one shot of Gosling driving home, with the excellent Night Call playing. The first 10 minutes alone is a good enough reason to watch the movie. Thor Ragnarok really conveyed that this was a very different tone from the previous movies. This was comedy Chris Hemsworth, but it's still going to be an action movie. This is going to be more high fantasy sci-fi than the previous ones. And there's going to be a much greater focus on Thor being a badass. Cue Immigrant Song. Django Unchained. The way Christoph Waltz introduces Dr. Schultz gives me chills. He is so charismatic and intelligent, yet deadly. All-time favorite movie, and was very surprised at how well Jamie Foxx did as well. Jurassic Park's opening scene is all the genius of 90s Spielberg refined. 2001. A Space Odyssey. I was born way after the film debuted, but the opening is stunning even to a person who's used to advanced special effects. Ace Ventura's HDS delivery. Lord of the Rings. Fellowship of the Ring. Totally epic opening. It concisely laid out the lore history, and featured an epic battle scene. Avengers Endgame. That scene with Hawkeye sucked all the happiness out the theater in a minute. Boogie Nights. It's a beautifully executed long tracking shot, and it introduces pretty much every major character in the film, finally culminating on a slow-mo zoom in on Dirk Diggler, or Eddie as he's known at this point. I just knew I was going to love it based on the genius of that opening shot. Never mind the opening scene. The opening credits of SE7N sold it for me. Apocalypse Now. Edit. Double silver. Thanks. Good to so many have great taste. This is the end. My only friend, the end. No Country for Old Men immediately sets the tone of the film. Everyone here mentioning Fellowship of the Ring seemed to be forgetting about that time the camera flew through a mountain to a pit where a pair of basically gods were duking it out while falling to their almost certain deaths. The black and white Frankenstein intro for Van Helsing. the one with Hugh Jackman, made me invested in the rest of the film. The rest of the film was kind of terrible, but I still remember it fondly on the strength of that opening. Edit. So people love this movie. Ha. Far be it from me to criticize anyone else's choice in cheesy film. I mean, I took my username from the kind of movie one watches on Mystery Science Theater. I think what made me disappointed with the rest of Van Helsing is just that intro is so good. Everything I want out of a monster movie in something like 10 minutes. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. For me at least, that opening line makes me laugh every time. The first time I saw it I immediately knew it was going to be a good movie. The Cabin in the Woods. The introduction of Hadley and Citizen and their casual work banter is absolutely brilliant. It's gonna be a real long weekend if everybody is this puckered up. Are you even listening to me? Definitely The Shining. You get the dramatic music with the lonely car driving into the mountains of nowhere. Really is an iconic beginning to a movie and definitely set the tone that wherever that car is going it's not going to be a vacation to Disneyland. Scream. Do you like scary movies? I'm admittedly a sucker for the opening of Revenge of the Sith. The drums then leading into the flight through the Battle of Coruscant was so cool as a kid, and it's stuck with me since. I'd say Wolf of Wall Street's opening does a pretty good job. I think Aladdin and the Lion King did amazing with the opening, having songs to open it. No one said Trainspotting. Once Upon a Time in the West. The opening scene of Cube was absolutely amazing. Did everything an opening scene should. It gave you the concept of the movie while leaving you asking questions and leaving plenty of room for story development. Pity that movie had a terrible sequel that really doesn't do the original justice. Here's the link. The movie is a masterpiece, definitely worth the watch. Romeo and Juliet, The Petrol Station. Guardians of the Galaxy, Star-Lord tomb raiding to tunes. Infinity War, Loki's and Idris Elba biting it made the stakes seem so much higher. Inglourious Bastards, that scene alone basically won Christoph Waltz the Oscar. Top Gun, the chord hits you at 0:12. You see the title at 1 minute and are immediately on the launch deck. X-Men 2. That Nightcrawler opening still holds up. The Godfather. Zodiac directed by David Fincher. No matter how much, or how little, you know about the truth behind the film, the opening scene does an incredible job of capturing your attention with such a jarring, gruesome, and methodical pace. I literally still get a chill down my spine every time they pull into the parking lot. Not to mention the fact that it completely changed my perception of one of my favorite songs. All around an excellent opening by Fincher. Kind of cheating, but the first scene and a half of Arrival, the opening scene showing her daughter's life and then the intro to her being a linguistic anthropologist is perfect way to show that this isn't just another alien invasion movie. The Royal Tenenbaums. Love this movie. The Way of the Gun. That opening scene sold me on the entire film and wasn't let down. Another great movie with an opening scene is Intermission. It's not one scene but the lineup opening of The Usual Suspects sets up the entire film. Star Wars Episode 3, Epic Space Battle. Back to the Future. This may be more coming from an analytical standpoint, but hints are perfectly laid out throughout that entire first scene that relate to the film's plot points, and set up both Marty and Doc's personalities. For me, it's Saving Private Ryan. Ghost in the Shell, anime 1995. Just absolutely nailed it, and then you got hit with one of the most famous opening credit sequences ever made. A Clockwork Orange. It is already a fantastic movie, and the novel is really good too. But god, just Alex beating the it up out of many people was one of the most entertaining moments of the movie. I wouldn't even be mad if they made a movie of just Alex doing what he did. Might not be a popular one, but the opening of Forrest Gump sold me. The music, the flittering of the feather, just drew me into the journey. Still one of my favorite films. The Dark Knight. From the start of it, you know it's something extraordinary. Military base attack in the first Transformers movie. It did a great job of showing how outgunned the humans were, and kick-started the movie series. The rest of the movies sucked, but the opening base attack sold it. Valerian, City of 1,000 Planets. The movie had its flaws, and ironically one of them was that the opening didn't have all that much to do with the rest of the plot other than establish why the place exists and what its purpose is. But still, I really like that opening scene. It's grand and optimistic and beautiful, but with a bit of melancholy too. Watchmen. Best intro credits ever created. Dazed and Confused. That sweet emotion intro. The opening scene to Skyfall was good,